What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ, Bucky, Rhett back in studio together. Always fun when we get a chance to be together. Fellas, how we doing?
Good.
Busy day.
Good.
Busy day.
Busy.
A lot of TV. Rhett's got some radio that's going on across the street.
Bucky and I are dressed for success, clearly.
I got my work in. I'm dressed for a ball game. I didn't know you were a sport coach to go watch the national championship game.
Sorry.
Casual
day over here.
Sue me on that one.
It's all right. Yeah, but look, it's one of those weird days, obviously, where you feel for what's happening around the league when coaches are moving on or asked to move on, and it's obviously it's one of those days you kind of there's some measured conversation, right, and then obviously some excitement because we have the playoff scenarios as well, which we'll get to here. But this is it's a big day for us here on this program because the fates and futures of franchises are being decided here.
I think we kind of transition for a lot of teams. If you're not a playoff team, you're thinking about the future.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things we major in here, thinking about obviously the draft. We have free agency before that, and trying to make your team better, which is it's a great example. And Buck, your Jags, we're going to get to all the playoff stuff here in a little bit, but last place to first place, we see it almost every year in this league, and that's what the offseason is about, get better. And now a lot of teams, that's going to be their focus.
And guys, over on around the NFL, they're probably talking about games that decide the number one seed in the postseason. No. Here on Move the Sticks, we're talking about games that decide the number one overall draft pick.
Yeah.
Which happened yesterday.
Which was pretty wild. We'll get to that. Let's get to some of the news, though, because it's a newsy day. You always have coaches that get relieved of their duties. We had a few of them that took place before we even got to the end of the season. But one that came down, I guess, late last night, Lovie Smith let go by the Houston Texans. A one-and-done the second time. Buck, I know you tweeted about this. Second year in a row we've had a one-and-done coach for the Houston Texans. So before you give me your take on that, agree or disagree, that is the least talented football team in the National Football League.
I mean, they're not a great team at all. I'm trying to think of – we always talk about blue players.
Yeah.
I don't know who the blue players on this team are. I mean, you can talk about Laramie Tunsil, maybe.
Pierce is going to be a chance to be one.
It's a chance, but, you don't have a lot of talent. And
Stingley.
The one thing that you look for, does the team play hard? Does the team
They played hard, man.
They played hard. They won games down the stretch. They're very competitive in those things. And so I just don't know in 1 year how you can evaluate whether someone has the program trending in the right direction, particularly when you took it all the way down to the studs and you're trying to rebuild it. I don't know. I just hope for the Texans' sake, whoever it is they decide to target, I hope they ignore the white noise and just do it, because the last 2 years has been a waste of time for them to do what they've done when it comes to two coaches that have had one-and-dones. Just pick your guy and live with all the other stuff if it's an unorthodox or controversial pick.
I think we all kind of thought the same thing. It felt like the Texans were maybe all right, we're kind of buying our time until the guy we really want becomes available. You don't never know if that's actually the case or not. But I'll disagree with you on that notion that they are the least talented team in football. I think there's some pieces to be excited about down in Houston. Dameon Pierce is one of them. Derek Stingley, when healthy, is one of them. Jalen Petrie showed that he's got some real skills. Nico Collins is a guy that's made some plays when healthy for that team. I think offensive and defensive lines need some work there for sure, and they got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback.
Other than the offensive, defensive line and the quarterback, they're an unbelievably gifted, talented team. Yeah,
loaded. I'm not saying that they're the Philadelphia Eagles over here, but I think there's some reasons for optimism in Houston.
All right, we don't have the time to do it, but I could go. I could tick off the teams. We go Atlanta Falcons versus Houston Texans, more talented. We go all the way down the line. They're not very good. They don't have a lot of talent. I thought they played hard under Lovie Smith. I agree with you on that point.
Operational stuff that you kind of hear. You hear some rumblings of the Brandon Cooks trade that didn't work out that he was trying to figure out. There was ways in which Lovie ran the team sounded like kind of drew the ire of some of the guys inside that locker room.
I think there's a lot of folks around the league who felt like that decision was made before he
I don't disagree.
The job.
I don't disagree with you necessarily.
The only thing I would say with this is because everyone is outraged that they won the last game. If you're going to make the move, do it before the last game of the season.
Yeah.
Don't allow it to be in play. If you're going to fire Lovie, you're going to fire him at the end of the season.
They played hard for his guy.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Guys played hard for him.
Let him go, and then you can lose the last game. You have the number one overall pick and that stuff. But if you let him coach and he's gotten the team to play as hard as he's gotten, this is the thing. And the funny thing, and we were looking at the highlights, the Colts contributed to this team
they can't
winning. I mean, 2 4th down situations, a Hail Mary that they let go over the top. I mean, yeah, he had them playing hard, but the Colts gifted the game to him.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think we need to spend any more time on that one. That was quite the scene there at the end of that ball game. All right, Arizona Cardinals. It's going to be all new. Kliff Kingsbury, he gets let go a year after signing a contract extension. Steve Keim, who's been away from the team for a while, he steps down as he tends to his health. So you're going to have a new general manager. You're going to have a new head coach with the Arizona Cardinals. One thing that's going to be the same, though, is Kyler Murray, Buck. And he's going to be coming off of a knee injury. He got paid. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be there. This was a situation with Kliff Kingsbury where he was handpicked to come in there. That was his guy. Those guys are going to be tied together, and that didn't work. So when you have somebody that has history with him, like Kliff Kingsbury did, who runs the same offense he's been running all the way back to high school, and that didn't work out, who in the world are you going to bring in there that's going to make this work?
Well, I think you have to make the decision independent of the quarterback. I think what you need is a true head coach, because we've seen the quarterback-friendly guy, the guy that's supposed to play nice with the quarterback in the sandbox. That doesn't work. So you got to think about the guy who's the visionary that can build the culture and build the team, because we can talk about Kyler Murray, but at least you have a quarterback in place. It's the other parts of the team that also need to be worked on and addressed. And so we'll see, because I don't know if it's an offensive guy, defensive guy. I just know whoever takes over this job has to be a leader who can hold everybody accountable while also rebuilding the product.
Great point, because Mike Garafolo, who was with us on our coverage of NFL Now and all this coaching news, mentioned an anecdote with Adrian Wilson, who stepped in and assumed some of those GM duties when Steve Keim stepped down, and went into and ripped the team. Said, look, we're working here this final couple of weeks of the season. You guys got to go to work too. And, he said that it kind of split the locker room a little bit. Some guys that didn't like that kind of message from the GM, guys that really did, like some veterans that were like, this needed to be said with this team. So it almost feels like the Cardinals kind of need a Lions-like system there, where Dan Campbell came in, as an offensive player, but not necessarily an offensive or defensive specialist in terms of coaching. And they need a real leader to galvanize the locker room and get them going in the same direction.
Yeah, and I think it's, from what you read, and this is not from anything I know from talking to anybody there, but, with Adrian Wilson and Quentin Harris kind of working as co-GMs since Steve Keim stepped down, I know Q well. I don't know Adrian Wilson well, but I've heard good things about him. Obviously, he is.
It's been Steve's right-hand man.
Yes,
too. Yeah.
and is well respected as a player for what he
He's
accomplished.
in the Ring of Honor. He's in the Ring of Honor.
And he's got a presence. Like when he walks into the room, you notice him. I mean, he's a dude. He's a dude. So this might be something where they're going to interview a lot of candidates. They're going to go outside the organization.
Different ideas.
Just kind of, I think that might be what it is. I would not be surprised at all if they stuck with these two guys, because these guys have been on interviews for GM jobs elsewhere, so they're qualified. Yeah. And Arizona's a little different. If you don't know it there, like that, they keep guys around that organization for a long time. They're kind of a little peculiar with how they do things.
And I think from the general manager standpoint, they've always promoted from within.
Yeah.
It's rather they go outside and bring in outside influence, because you have to know the lay of the land and what you're dealing with. And you talk about the split. It might be an intriguing thing when you talk about Q doing one part of it, Adrian Wilson doing another part of it, the connection to the locker room that Adrian Wilson has. But
and Q played there. Yeah, Q played too.
Yes.
And
So I do think there's something to it. And you talk about this team, the young guys not necessarily liking the direct approach. Well, some of that comes from maybe Kliff Kingsbury wasn't as direct when it came to coaching the team. He chose to take a lot of it on him and the coaches as opposed to really putting it on some of the players, and they might have needed some of that.
Last thing, I'll get to you on this one, Rhett, then we'll take a break. But with the college coaches going to the NFL, you recruit kids in college, and they always talk about sometimes you got to de-recruit them. I almost wonder it's a different skill set dealing with the college kids versus dealing with the NFL players. Even I know Kliff played in the league; he's been around the league.
Yeah,
but it's still different how you interact with those guys in terms of commanding the respect.
Well, certainly. I mean, look at what happened. And I don't know if that's the same. If you could say the same thing happened with Matt Rule in Carolina, but obviously had great success building programs at the college level, and then just couldn't find that connection, perhaps, to the locker rooms at the professional level. I think that's obviously something that you have to consider here. And I'd be shocked if the Cardinals went back to the collage well at this point. Sounds like they're going to be interviewing a lot of those kind of well-known names on the head coaching front.
All right, no doubt. All right, that's just the start of things here today. A lot of news to get to. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, talk about Sean McVay. Are his days as a head coach for the Los Angeles Rams over? We'll discuss that right after the break. This is how you football. You can stream live, local, and primetime games on your phone or tablet, 45-minute game replays with NFL Plus Premium, and more. This is the NFL for every fan. This is football freedom. This is your game on the go. Go to plus.nfl.com and sign up now. Man, Rhett looks at me with just such jealousy when I crush a read like that. It's just watching a host have to sit there and just listen to somebody else host just brings me such joy. I got to be honest.
Well, you're really sticking the landing there. I'll give you a solid 7 out of 10 on that one.
Thanks. I take that. That's a passing grade. I'll take that. Buck, Sean McVay. He's going to take a little time away. He's going to evaluate his future, what he wants to do. I know we had talked off air about the Charger-Ram game that I was at the week before, and just seemed like, man, it looked like he was tired. Like it is kind of worn on him a little bit. Now maybe he'll get a little break, get away from it, and then recharge his batteries and want to sign up for this. But doesn't this feel like a rebuild is coming here for the Rams?
Yes, it sounds like a rebuild is coming, and a brief retirement is also coming. Because when you begin to talk about and contemplate retirement, you need to retire. That's just coming from a player's point of view. You can't be all the way in and think about what is on the other side.
Aaron Rodgers disagrees with you on that.
Yeah, I think he does it every year.
He does. He's a little more reflective and introspective than maybe some of us. But with Sean McVay, I think Sean McVay certainly wants to step away. And because he goes so hard when it comes to the preparation and the process and all the things that he does to get the Rams going, you probably have a short wick on that candle. And so he probably will step away, and then we'll see if he rekindles the love. But I can't imagine someone who is as competitive as he is being gone for long.
I can imagine the exhaustion when you consider he probably had to prepare 27 different offensive linemen to play for him this year with the injuries that team sustained. And then you lose, Matthew Stafford for much of this season. Cooper Kupp goes down. I mean,
Aaron Donald's gone.
You're just hitting, marquee player after foundational player after marquee. And so now, what does that do for you? I just the one thing that I go back to here, and I wonder if the Rams really set themselves up for success, because we gave them a ton of credit, and rightly so, for how they got to the Super Bowl and won it, right? And then you look at what happened this offseason. Contracts to guys like Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner. And look, Bobby Wagner's a great player, and Allen Robinson has been in his own right. But did they fit with what LA wanted to do? Did they make the impact that was expected? I don't know. And I think you're always going to have those, right? I mean, you're not going to go 100% on moves, both free agency or the draft. But again, I mean, this is going to come down, Les Snead has got his work cut out for him to try to kind of get this team back up to where they're supposed to be and where we've expected them to be with minimal draft resources to do so.
He's been kind of drawing that inside straight, for the last couple of years. It's been no room for error with your picks and with your signings.
And he's been hitting them.
Because they've had such high-ticket items, and they've hit on those. But it's a narrow path to travel. And we talked about it at the time. I know we had the discussion. Man, if you're a fan of a team, would you trade getting a world championship for maybe, 7, 8, maybe a decade of down years after that? And most people, it's easy. I know when they're getting ready to get to Super Bowl, and I said, you kidding me? As a
take
kid,
this every time.
I grew up in San Diego. I've never seen a championship. Right. I don't even know what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah, give me one of those, and I'll suffer after that until you get about a year, Buck, and then that championship, man, that seems like a million years ago, and you're like, when are they going to be good again? This is going to be a slog trying to get back.
Well, I think as a team builder, what you would like is to always be in the conversation.
Yeah.
You may not always hoist the Lombardi, but you always want to be the guy that is in the tournament. That's
the
around
Dodgers.
The tournament.
That's like the Dodgers philosophy. They're going to give every year. They're going to give themselves
You just
a chance.
always want to be able to be in the conversation, and one day you're going to knock the door down. And so I think for the Rams, you talked about the narrow path to victory when you always have kind of like a transient approach, free agents that you're bringing in. You never have a nucleus or a core that kind of grows together. When I look at the Cincinnati Bengals and I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they have a nucleus that has grown together and they experience it. So it gives them maybe a little longer window when it comes to building a Super Bowl team. And so we'll see how the Rams do it. But I think this is a hard job for the next coach to try and get them to reach the heights that they've been able to reach under Sean McVay.
2 picks in the top 160. 36 overall, 69. So 1, 2, 1, 3. They don't pick again until 168.
Wow.
So, and then they got a few of those.
They've got some assets, though. If they want to tear this thing all the way down, they've got some assets. They can recoup some picks and go in the opposite direction.
And is that part of what might be driving the reflection from Sean McVay?
Yeah, he doesn't want to go through that.
Oh, because it's hard. You've had success. You jumped in. They already had the quarterback there. He had to fix Jared Goff. They put in a system that worked. Then there was another iteration and change that they did after going to the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford coming over. Now you really have to examine, like a real rebuild. Like before, it was a little more retooling, a little tweaking. DJ's one of those HGTV guys.
I love it.
He didn't have to
I don't know how to do any of
it.
that stuff, but I like
He just had to kind of he just kind of had to fix the kitchen and the bathroom. He
Chip
didn't have
and
to
Joe
do the
left
entire
and started
thing.
their own network, and I kind of fell off a little bit. Yeah, that was tough. But let's get to some candidates here.
Sure.
Maybe one or two guys you think would make good head coaches.
Well, I mean, I think what I like seeing is expert experience and guys who've shown expertise. And I would say this year, Steve Wilks was able to show some of that doing an interim role. He took a team that he inherited. I think they were 1-4. He goes 6-6 with the Carolina Panthers, has them in play for the division. And I believe what I saw from him was growth in his own coaching style, but I saw growth from this team. This team had a clear identity under Steve Wilks. He got them playing better, running the football and defense. But let's be honest, we talk about it being a quarterback-driven league. Sam Darnold played better under Steve Wilks than he played under anybody else that was there. And so he deserves credit for that. And I think in the right situation, the right environment, he could be the right coach to rebuild or repair a program that's a little off.
Yeah, I think the coordinators are coming into focus quite a bit. I mean, the Houston Texans, I think, are interviewing or have requested to interview all of them. Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen, who you know very well from his time in LA with the Chargers, DJ, and then D'Amico Ryans, I think, is one that fascinates all of us, right? You see the success that Robert Saleh had as the defensive coordinator with the Niners, and now got that opportunity with the Jets. And I think there's some positivity there if they can figure the quarterback thing out there. That defense played phenomenally, and obviously D'Amico steps right in as a first-time DC and picks up right where Saleh left off. I think there's just so much, so much to like about a potential reunion down in Houston with the D'Amico Ryans, right? A guy who played there and did so well for that franchise as a linebacker, comes back, kind of transforms that defense and gets that franchise back on track.
I'll be honest with you. Your takes have a little extra oomph when you got a sport coat on.
I agree.
Take
me seriously.
I do take you a little bit seriously.
I mean,
not
DJ, I was once told, dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Yeah, so. I want to work at the mall, apparently. That's the job I'm looking for. Look, I've had an opportunity to be around some guys. When I was with the Philadelphia Eagles, Doug Peterson was a quarterback coach. And, Buck, you played with him. You've known him forever. And I thought being around him and we would evaluate quarterbacks together and talk about him all the time, I thought that he's going to be a great head coach because he understands the game having played it. He's incredibly sharp. He can relate to everybody, and he can develop quarterbacks. And while I was in Philadelphia, we drafted a quarterback out of Northwestern and Mike Kafka. And even when we interviewed him through the process, we're like, okay, he's okay as a quarterback. This guy's going to be a head coach one day. Then he coaches underneath Andy Reid. He's there and with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then he goes with the Giants, gets a chance to work with Daniel Jones. And we saw Daniel Jones take a huge leap. Brian Daboll gets a lot of credit for that. He's obviously the head man there. But I think Kafka, it's not going to take long. And I think anytime you're attached to Andy Reid, that helps. But a former quarterback who's incredibly bright and who now has an example out there of what he's been able to do. He's built a resume.
So here's the thing about Mike Kafka that I think is really interesting. He gets away from the Andy Reid umbrella, and so he now can get credit for the work that we've seen with the Giants, which is different than some of the other guys who worked up under Andy Reid. Andy Reid was still a play caller. He still was kind of
that's where Eric Bieniemy's situation
overseeing
a little bit. Yeah.
And Kafka, he not only goes somewhere differently, he runs an offense that's completely different.
Yeah, outside the tree. Yeah.
And so what you see is adaptability, flexibility. You see development from the quarterback because the quarterback is playing much better than he's played. And I think Kafka now might have a different appreciation for playing complementary ball based on his experience having to navigate and call plays for a team that had to play a complementary style to let the defense kind of carry the way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who gets interviews and who ends up getting these jobs. And we'll see. Maybe some more jobs open up here over the course of the week. We might not be done. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and look at some of the action that we saw yesterday on the field, including Patriots, Bills, and a couple games that Bucky and myself were at. And then we can preview the Move the Sticks Bowl here in just
Part 4 from the year, it
something
feels
like that. We'll be back right after this.
January Sunday in Week 18 as New England and Buffalo are about to meet. And here's Hines on the run back, breaking a tackle and taking it past midfield, and down the sideline he goes. This is storybook, an opening kickoff return for Damar Hamlin, and this place is absolutely going wild.
Oh, you just said this is storybook. This is almost fate. I just can't believe what just happened. Josh Allen, the same thing.
After all that's happened in these last 6 days, I don't believe what we just saw here.
There you go. What a moment there. Romo almost lost it there for a second.
So did Jim. I mean, Jim was almost out of. I mean, but that's how I felt. I was on Game Day Live yesterday as that unfolded live, and you were just kind of like dumbstruck for a second. You're like, what did that really just happen? But it wasn't just that one. Right? Nyheim Hines comes back in the third quarter, DJ, as the Bills win this game and punch their ticket in the postseason as the number 2 seed. You're like, okay, the initial emotional outburst in that game, and then things kind of level out a little bit. The Patriots actually take the lead, DJ, in that third quarter, and they go up 17-14 on a Folk field goal. Ensuing kick, Nyheim Hines goes back from 101 out.
Unbelievable.
And it was history at that point. The Bills, no way they were losing that game.
Bucky, as a Dodger fan, you might know this. Was the Kirk Gibson, was that when they said, I don't believe what I just saw? I'm trying to remember what that line was. I want to say it was from that. Don't quote me on that. Your thoughts on the game there?
Well, my thoughts are, the stars for the Buffalo Bills stepped up. In a situation like this where you have all the turmoil around the team, you need your best players to step up. Josh Allen played well. Stephon Diggs played well. And so I think there's a path for this team to go forward where they play up to some of the expectations that we had. This is a Super Bowl contender. And so for them to be the team that we think, hey, these guys are going to have to play at a star level. And everyone else is going to have to do their part. But make no mistake about it, Josh Allen's going to have to be great. He's going to have to play at the MVP level. And then Stephon Diggs is going to have to be one of the best receivers in football.
Yeah, the Stars definitely played. By the way, that was Jack Buck, Joe Buck's dad, on the call of the Kirk Gibson home run. Don't believe what I just saw.
Very nice.
And it was Tony Romo just went there as well with Jim Nantz. All right, I'm gonna go to the Bills and the postseason. When they signed Von Miller, we talked about him being the closer. And the closer in the postseason manages reps during the year, and then you get to the postseason, he's going to be able to close out games. Well, that's not an option anymore. Somebody's going to have to take the ball here in the ninth inning and finish football games. And I'm looking at Greg Rousseau in this pass rush for the Bills. Can they close games out? Rousseau just getting better and better. We said it when he was coming out of Miami. We're like, this guy has so much ability, so much upside. He's so long, he's so rangy, so athletic. 8 sacks here in year number 2. You see it right there, tied for the most on the team. Can he take it to another level? Do you have another gear once you get to the postseason? Because we saw it in the Super Bowl last year. Aaron Donald just took over the game, won the game. Who's going to close games for the Bills on defense?
Well, yeah, it's a big part of what they need to do because this is a team that should play with leads because of their offense. And so we've talked about it, the formula to win, quarterback play, pass rushers. They have the quarterback. Now you have to get the pass rush to consistently disrupt the game. Greg Rousseau is a big part of that equation.
All right, let's get to a couple games we were at, Buck. Let's get to yours first from Saturday. It looked like an electric environment there. The Jags punch their ticket. They knock out the Tennessee Titans.
Pool room only, I hold. I mean, there was only room in the pools.
Yeah. First of all, tell us about the atmosphere there.
Atmosphere is completely different than anything I experienced in the bank. 70,000 people there. They were giving out the towels. Like it was always the Jags.
There it is.
They gave out the towels to the first 60 that walked through the building. And DJ, I would tell you, in pregame, normally it's like a late arriving crowd, or if the crowd is there, sometimes they're in the opposing team's color. It was a teal out. Everyone was there. But let me say this about Doug Peterson and why Doug Peterson is the perfect fit for this team. Phil Jackson used to say the calmest team wins, meaning the team that can quiet their mind and just execute and play without the emotions being a part of it, they win. And Doug Peterson's personality is perfect for that. It was raucous. The team is young. The team was excited. But he's always been the same. So even through the ups and downs of the season, he never changed. And as a result, you now have a team that is like that. They don't flinch. They don't get out of sorts. They just keep playing, and they've been able to win games in the fourth quarter because of that approach.
I'm looking forward to getting in that environment this weekend and seeing it for myself there. It's always interesting in the offseason. We do free agency, and people always throw out their grades and say, oh, this team nailed free agency. You got this guy or that guy, and what a steal. And then how in the world do you pay Christian Kirk all this money when you look at all these other wide receivers? He's so grossly overpaid. Buck, every time we come together on Mondays, I feel like we're talking about Christian Kirk making some plays, and he was all over the place in this game. And you'll see the highlights. There's not a lot of guys around him. He creates so much separation and creates some easy throws there for his young quarterback and Trevor Lawrence. It's been an outstanding find there in free agency.
However, as you're talking about easy throws, the Jags quarterback and Trevor Lawrence missed some.
True.
Namely, that Zay Jones wide open in the back of the end zone there and just kind of airmailed it into the stands. And this was not Trevor Lawrence's best game. 20-32, 212. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was not his best. He'll have to be at his best, I think, to score enough points to compete with the Chargers here in this game. But I think the encouraging part of that is with Lawrence and the offense not at their best, only scoring 1 touchdown in this game against Tennessee, the defense stepped up in a big way when they had to get some stops. Now, look, did Josh Dobbs and the Tennessee offense scare you a ton? Not really, but you still had Derrick Henry. You still had to – they were trying to salt that game away late, and you had to come up with some big stops. I thought Trayvon Walker really did, and we knew he could stop the run, right? I mean, that's what we saw him do a lot in Georgia, and then he started to get a little bit better as a pass rusher here. And the Jags, I mean, look, they generate pressures. You can see there at the bottom of your screen on Next Gen, according to Next Gen Stats. Third highest QB pressure percentage on dropbacks in the league, and Trayvon Walker is becoming a part of that. Josh Allen is also a part of that, but then seeing him, that ball bounced right to him, right after Rayshon Jenkins knocked it out of Josh Dobbs' hands. I mean, he couldn't get any better than that. But that's a dude right there in Rayshon Jenkins who's made some huge plays for this Jags team.
It's unfortunate that Pro Bowl voting happened before you saw the stretch run. Because in the last few weeks, he's made a bunch of big plays. Had a pick six against the Dallas Cowboys to win the game. He came off the edge and knocked the ball loose to Josh Allen, picked up for the scoop and score. One other guy, when we talk about the matchup, because we'll talk about it more, keep an eye on Arden Key. Arden Key's
played well.
He's been exactly what they needed, but it's not only what he's done on the field. Quietly, he's assumed some of the leadership responsibility, challenge guys to step up their games. He's been one. So it'll be interesting to see how this team continues to play now that they're in the tournament. But, man, by all accounts, it's been a great season for the Jags.
Last thing I'll say on Jacksonville, you talked about them getting a win with Christian Kirk in free agency. So they get, arguably one of the biggest wins on the offensive side of the ball in free agency. But Foye Oluokun is not talked about nearly enough as a guy who came over from the Falcons in free agency on the defensive side. 13 tackles again in this game and a sack. He's been a big-time player.
Yeah, and Rayshon Jenkins, former team, the Chargers, coming into town to face the Jags. So looking forward to that matchup. Speaking of the Chargers-Broncos, it was a weird game. Because you come into this game wondering, okay, what's going to happen with that Ravens-Bengals game? The Ravens lose that game. You know when you take the field that you're locked into the 5 seed. So how much are they going to play their starters? Are they going to play their starters? They can't improve their seeding. They can't get any worse. They are locked in, number 5. They're going to Jacksonville to play next week. That's already decided. Coach Staley decides to play the starters, and they played Justin Herbert all the way through 3 quarters. Mike Williams got dinged up in the second quarter of this game. Keenan Allen ended up having to go the whole way because they were light at receiver. So you had Joey Bosa got a little nick. Looks like he's going to be just fine. But they end up losing the football game. Now, I'm going to give you some negatives. I'm going to spin to positives here.
Oh, good.
Because you like this stuff to happen this week as opposed to next week when it's lose and go home. But 3 things in this game. Number 1, they fumbled twice. Eckler fumbled. DeAndre Carter fumbled. DeAndre Carter fumbled at the 10 going in. They're getting ready to score. Can't turn the ball over in the postseason. So that's going to be a nice, friendly teaching moment for them during the week. Number 2, explosive plays. Russell Wilson looked like he found the fountain of youth, like he's a cocoon or something. He was throwing deep balls all over the place. Big chunk plays. You can't allow the Jags to throw the ball over your head. That was another teaching point that I think they can take away from this. And then a couple 15-yard penalties. Can't have dumb penalties in the postseason. So Chargers lose this game. I know Brandon Staley got a lot of heat for playing guys and Mike Williams getting hurt. But I think there's actually some teachable moments here in a game. The game didn't matter, but I think you can take something from the game to help you.
Well, the things that you point out, the fumbles, explosive plays, and penalties, they're what they call DBOs. Don't beat ourselves.
Yep.
Those are self-inflicted things that will cause you to lose games at any level. And so the Chargers need to tighten that up because in the postseason, everything is magnified. And so those issues will get you
beat
quickly.
Look at what happened with the Green Bay Packers and how some of those types of mistakes really helped end their run as they were trying to get into the postseason. I'll just take just a quick look at the Broncos because we didn't really talk about them. We knew that head coaching vacancy was going to be up. You want to talk about name brands to lead off your head coaching search? Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, Dan Quinn. Yeah. I mean, it's about as high profile as it's going to get in this cycle, right, with guys that have been there and done that before. Obviously, with Sean Payton winning a Super Bowl, Jim Harbaugh getting that close. And look, this is a new ownership group. They are willing to spare no expense. And look, if Russell Wilson gave you some signs of life there, I think Sean Payton sits there watching that and it's like, okay. Jim Harbaugh sits there and is like, Russell Wilson played his best ball with a physical run game. That's what I want to do. I could do that with him in Denver. I think there's a lot to be intrigued by there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be intrigued, but a lot of it depends on Russell. Russell said after the game that it's been a very humbling experience this year.
See.
And so now that you've been humbled, is he open and more receptive to the offense being played a certain way. This is a Russell that we are accustomed to seeing, where they run the ball, they push the ball down the field. Hey, limited amount of throws. He only had 24 throw attempts in that game, but he had a bunch of explosive plays and looked comfortable. Even though it was still just a tick over 50% from a completion rate, he had 283 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's the kind of Russell output that you want if you're the Denver Broncos.
Well, and I think one of the more encouraging things, you touched on it, were those 50-plus throws. The moon balls came back, right? And they were raining down from the heavens there at Mile High, and Jerry Jeudy just was like, oh, my gosh.
He even stepped out of some tackles, which he hadn't done much. He's been sacked a zillion times this year. He got away from some of that in this game.
Right. So they got to get that offensive line fixed, and Garrett Bowles back at left tackle and get that unit playing right. Javonte Williams comes back next year, right?
They got pieces. I mean, it's a talented roster. They played a lot of close games. I think they lost 3 overtime games this year.
Game management will have something to do with that. So all of that comes with an experienced coach, because I don't think they can do a first-timer again.
No,
someone with experience, someone who's a proven track record of being able to win.
So during the pregame, we had Woody Page, legendary writer, up there, and we had him come on the pregame, and he's dialed in there. He's been in Denver forever. He knows everybody. And we said, how do you think they have these coaches stacked? And he just didn't hesitate. He's like, from what I hear, Jim Harbaugh's number 1, which was surprising. Sean Payton, number 2. Dan Quinn, number 3. All guys have NFL head coaching experience, so that speaks to that. They're ready to go right now. The Harbaugh connection's interesting.
Coaching the Super Bowl.
You've got a defensive coordinator there in Denver who coached under Harbaugh with the 49ers, so you could keep that part of your team the same. For those who don't know, Condoleezza Rice is actually part of their ownership group and has that connection to Harbaugh through Stanford. So there are some connections there. I will just say this on Harbaugh, and I know Drew's behind the glass as a Michigan man, but when we're kids, think back to when we were kids. You remember you'd say, you know what, Mom, is it okay if I have a friend over? And she'd go, yeah, you just need to call him and invite him over. So you call and invite a friend over. But everybody has that one friend who calls and invites himself over.
Oh,
that's Jim Harbaugh. I think he's in touch with every team in the league saying, hey, I don't know if you might have a change. If you do, hey, here's my number. You got me.
Guys,
Let me know.
He is going to be enthusiastically coaching the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, as of right now.
Right.
That's how I view things. I don't know. Yeah, But what do you think about Harbaugh with Russell Wilson? You think that would work?
I do. Just based on what makes them, what they both want to do and what makes them great, that seems to be a match to me.
Well, I think it will be a match because I think he'll challenge Russell Wilson. I think he'll challenge him in a different way, and he'll make it where, hey, Russ, it's you and I, it's us against the world. But he'll be able to hold Russell accountable because he has pelts on the wall. And that is really important when it comes to dealing with Russell Wilson.
I just would love it if he got to the press conference and said, you know what, I wanted this job. I was a quarterback with the Chargers with Doug Flutie, and I've just had an affinity for these smaller quarterbacks, and let's see how Russell handles that, see how that conversation goes. I just wanted to see that. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Rams, Seahawks. We're going to talk about that battle for the number 7 seed. Obviously an epic contest between the Lions and the Packers. We'll get to that as well as a little draft talk right after this.
Ooh.
Games that had some major impact in the NFC on the 7th seed here, and the first one being the Rams and Seahawks. By the way, can I just finish one thing on the Harbaugh deal because we've talked about Denver with him? The side note, though, is somehow he goes to Arizona. We get the Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh thing twice a year. Now, that would be fun.
Played for the Colts, too. And there's an opening there.
His name's in the rafters there. Yeah. Which, by the way, the Colts put guys up there for, playing 3 or 4 years. We got to extend that out a little bit before you get a spot up.
They also
like that?
It's says Harbaugh 94 to 97. It just looks weird.
Please tell me you're not going to talk about the division banners. Are you going to talk about the division banners?
Well, you just did, so I don't have to.
Go ahead. All right. Rams, Seahawks, Buck. A game that goes to overtime. The Seahawks, they get out of there with a win, which, as we'll get to this next game in a minute, the Lions knocking out the Packers. That combination punched their ticket to the postseason. What'd you see in that game?
I saw what makes a good scout. You know what makes a good scout?
Give it to me.
Conviction, knowing that, hey, I believe in this player is going to make it, and I'm going to stand on the table for him. So let's go back to the offseason. When Pete Carroll got rid of Russell Wilson, they traded him away. Everyone was like, what are you going to do at quarterback? And he was like, Geno Smith, Drew Lock, they'll figure it out. And everyone's like, seriously, you can't do it. So then when it comes mock draft time, we're all
quarterback.
Yeah.
He's
like, no, we're good. We got Geno Smith. And then lo and behold, not only does Geno Smith win the job, but Geno Smith performs at a level that is a Pro Bowl level.
Insane.
That some would say that he exceeded what they were getting from Russell Wilson last year.
He did.
He led the league in completion percentage. You see the numbers. You see the way he performed. You see the way the offense was running. They were able to stay systematic but still get great quarterback play. So it's a tip of the cap to Pete Carroll for saying, hey, I believe in a certain way of playing is going to give our team an opportunity to win games. He stuck to his guns, and he had a great quarterback to play as a result.
Yeah, throw John Schneider in there as well. I look at this ball game, and one of the things that I'll do is I don't get a chance to see these games live, so I look at the box score first before I see any of the game. And you look at this box score offensively, and really only one guy for Seattle popped when you looked at it was Kenneth Walker and what he was able to accomplish. Has a legit shot to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. They've had a legit shot with Tariq Woolen to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year. It's a heck of a draft by John Schneider. It's an example, too. We talk about the parity in this league and how quick things can turn around. This was an old, slow roster, a team with not a lot of draft capital off the Jamal Adams trade. And all of a sudden now you look up and they've got young guys, they've got speed, they've got draft picks. Like John Schneider and Pete Carroll just flipped this thing.
They're into the postseason without Jamal Adams contributing at all this year, and with obviously without the draft picks that they had to give up to get him, which is pretty incredible because that means they hit on all those picks this year. Remember when you did that segment that Sweep the Nation on draft hits and misses, and you're like hit. Ding, 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 and then meh, and like some of those. I mean, like you go through this list, Charles Cross, thumbs up, right? Boye Mafe, I think, undecided. We all like who he is as a player.
Meh.
Yeah, right. That was it. That was what I loved. Kenneth Walker, 2 thumbs up, absolute hit. Abe Lucas, thumbs up, absolute hit. You keep going on. Kobe Bryant started, all those games, hit. Tariq Woolen, hit. Tyreek Smith, I think that the jury's still out there. He's season-ending injured reserve. Bo Mel. Derek Young, like in the 7th round, they found a dude that's contributing in a big way on special teams and on offense. Like, it's about as good as it gets.
All right, so you've praised Pete Carroll. We've praised John Schneider. We've praised the additions. We've praised the decisions. Now it comes to it. Third time they're going to face the San Francisco 49ers. Do they have a fighting chance in this game, Rhett?
I think they have a fighting chance, but I think I'm going to pick the 49ers.
Bucky just sat back in his chair. I already know. I've known this man long enough. I don't even need to hear him speak. I can just read his body language. I know exactly what he's going to say. Go ahead, Buck.
It's a division game.
It's a division game.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times, but they're going to get smoked. He's going to set you up, and he's going to take you right down.
I won't say they're going to get smoked.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they can be competitive.
That's disrespectful, but it's very hard. It's a big mountain to climb.
Yeah.
But, no, I think the Niners in this one. The Niners are a better team.
Yeah, they are. But doesn't take away from the year that Seattle's had and validation that they made.
And by the way,
decision.
We'll get to it here in a little bit.
We're gonna also do a full preview on Thursday of all these games. So we'll do a deep dive.
It's also nice to have a top 5 draft pick when you're in the playoffs.
Yeah, isn't that sweet? Not too shabby. They are picking 5th. The Detroit Lions, who almost made the playoffs, are picking 6th. And these teams they like each other a lot right now. Let's just say there's a lot of Lions fans in Seattle.
You know what I think? I think Seattle should give Detroit the 5 spot.
Yeah, just
a little flip, just out of gratitude.
Yeah, thanks for getting us to the postseason. We appreciate that. To show our gratitude, we'll bump spots with you here. This Lions team, what a win. You go nighttime, primetime, on the road, Lambeau Field, Aaron Rodgers, the Packers have started to figure things out. You figure, man, they're going to get into the postseason somehow, some way. And the Lions of all teams are going to go in there and beat the Lions are going to go in there and beat the Packers. And just as we talked about the Seahawks kind of changing the course of their franchise over a year, the Lions have done the same thing. Couple really good drafts. Dan Campbell looks absolutely like the right coach. And Buck, so many times when you see the teams that are floundering, the teams that find their way into this top 10 year after year after year in the draft, we come back with the same thing, like, what's their identity? Like, who are these guys? What are they trying to be? Are they a physical team, a finesse team, a high-flying team? Like, there you go. I love it.
Bye.
Waving to those Packer fans. This is a physical, gritty, tough football team that has absolutely taken on the identity of their head coach.
Absolutely. They've taken on the identity of the head coach, and they've also drafted players
to that identity.
Identity. Yeah. The best thing that happened for them is Aiden Hutchinson falling to them because the Jaguars elected to go another way. Aiden Hutchinson has been everything they wanted. Energizer bunny, tough, hard-nosed player, blue-collar worker off the edge. He's done that. But let's talk about the quarterback because Jared Goff he was dismissed from the LA Rams after leading them to a Super Bowl. Didn't want him. He goes to Detroit. There's questions about, hey, he's the bridge quarterback. They need to find somebody else. But he has become a better player in Detroit. He's done a really good job of really adapting to this offense. And I don't know if Rhett gave me the stat. Did you give me the stat about
maybe
15,
probably if it's a good one.
15 touchdowns, or maybe Drew. I think Drew might have done it.
Yeah, probably Drew.
15 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Oh, there it is.
This thing, like, it's crazy. Last 9 games, Jared Goff, and I'm going to say this just for a little NFL Network programming down the road. I think we need to bring back Wentz versus Goff.
Hashtag.
I think we need to bring that back. I think we need to bring that back because I think I might have been on the right side of history.
I did a little victory lap on Wentz when he almost won that MVP in 2017. A little victory lap, a little early on that one.
Yeah.
Hashtag Goff has a little bit of an edge on that one right now.
It's been a real roller coaster because Bucky took a victory lap when Goff took the Rams to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Right?
Up and down.
Oh, boy.
Down. Up and down.
Yeah, no question. But look, I think you got to give Jared Goff a lot of credit there, and I know you just did a little bit.
Goff, I forgot about that.
Goff versus Wentz, man. The whole show.
It was an hour show. It's a full hour show.
Can we do Young versus Stroud? I mean, is that something we could do here?
Don't say it too loud. They're listening.
Hashtag
don't say it too loud.
Young versus Stroud. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So the other part of it is like the run game for Detroit. Like they get down inside the 20, and you better believe Jamal Williams is coming. Right, he's going to get the ball and he's going to score. If they get inside the 5, certainly. And I mean, I don't know. He broke Barry Sanders' rushing touchdown record this year. Like that is, I don't care if they're all from a yard out. Like that is that is special. Like you can count on that, and it just feels like that is one of those embodiments of the identity that Dan Campbell has tried to institute. DeAndre Swift, is again one of those slashers, capable of explosive plays. They've got touchdowns out of Justin Jackson, who you saw with the Chargers.
He was always a good player, just couldn't stay healthy.
And then the receiving core has really come together. Josh Reynolds off the waiver wire last year. DJ Chark is a free agent acquisition, and then we all knew Amon-Ra St. Brown from here in LA as one of those guys who could play, and we got to interview him a bunch on Path to the Draft. And I mean, he's one of the top 10 receivers in football right now with the way that he's played, 100-catch season again. So they got a lot to like there.
Lot to like. And I'll say this one little thing because as a former player, I'm really excited because this team has so many former players on the coaching staff, and so you wanted it to work out just because it creates other opportunities for other guys. But Dan Campbell, their staff, and all those guys, they have it trending in the right direction. But when you think about what the Lions have been able to do to erase some of the narratives, for them to go in Green Bay, not only to knock off Green Bay twice, but to knock them off in a win-or-go-home game in Green Bay. Man, you talk about setting a launch pad for what this team could do. And I know he talked about you got to rebuild the chemistry and do it all over again. But, man, you have to feel good if you're a Lions fan about what could be down the road.
How about the other side of it here, the Green Bay Packers, Buck? Let me just start with this. Do you think Aaron Rodgers wants to come back, and do you think that Green Bay, in the personnel department, wants him to come back?
Well, I don't. Yeah, so that's a two-part question. Let's assess the first part with Rodgers here because they found something at the end of the season. Now, give it some of the opponents they were beating when they were winning, stacking those wins and keeping their playoff hopes alive. That's what I'm saying.
Cupcake City.
But can't be denied that Christian Watson found his way towards the second half of the season. Romeo Doubs, I think there's still a lot to like there. Aaron Jones and the way that they can have that physical run game when they need to. I think they've got to find a way to get back to the offensive line being a strength. I mean, they had those 5 homegrown dudes, and then Bakhtiari's in and out of the lineup every week. Elton Jenkins missed. I think if they solidify that offensive line, I think Aaron Rodgers got to feel a little bit excited about some of the things that he saw in the second half of the season.
It's hard. It's hard to when you're paying what you're paying Aaron Rodgers and for his reputation. Thank you for the number, for the reputation and what he's accomplished in this league to be in win and go home games. And we saw it against the 49ers when they don't think they had an offensive touchdown. It's 16 points. This is a win and go home game at home, and you put up 16 points.
Think about the last few times where they've been eliminated. They've been eliminated at home. You have a quarterback.
Remember, they used to never, ever lose.
Let me stop. Hey, Nabil, I'm gonna need you to leave the room about what we're about to say. I need Nabil to bounce because this is gonna be a tough one. This conversation is gonna be tough because right now you're talking about does he want to come back, and do they want him back? I think he holds them back from doing what they need to do. I think what they've been trying to do is do a rebuild with duct tape and all this other stuff. Well, they need to go all in. If you're going to do the youth movement, maybe you take a step back for a year to get the young guys on the field, so then the following year they can do it.
Here's a more intriguing question in my mind, and I'll give it to you 2 different ways. The first way is this. The Las Vegas Raiders get rid of Derek Carr. Are they calling the Green Bay Packers to see if they want a reunion with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers?
No, because they already signed Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Would you choose, if you had for 1 year, Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers if you're Josh McDaniels?
I would take Tom Brady.
I would take Tom Brady.
He's been in my system. I know everything he's about, and I know the level that he raises everybody else up to.
I would say just from a locker room perspective,
okay.
It would appear that Tom Brady would be one that would galvanize the guys maybe a little better. I believe the Packers play like they play because their best player is Moody. And because he's up and down like that,
what if
I believe the team
I would
like
say
that.
this. If I bring Tom Brady in there, I'm confident that whether or not our team wins or loses, he's going to teach all of our young players how to win. And if I bring in Aaron Rodgers, he's going to probably teach them about hallucinogenics. I don't know what's he going to impart on these guys. I have no idea.
And see, this is the other thing where I would have an issue. Like, you can't cry about the young guys not being developed or not coming along when you stayed away the entire offseason. Like, if you were going to come and you signed a big deal and there's
never been a question about Tom Brady all in. Never.
If you're going to play with all these young guys, you have to be available in the offseason to teach the young guys how you want it. Part of the reason there was delay on Christian Watson being the guy that he became, he didn't work with the quarterback.
He was also hurt for the whole offseason too.
Right.
I get it.
But he didn't work with the quarterback. He didn't have enough time because even if he's hurt, it doesn't prevent them from watching tape together. It doesn't prevent them from having install meetings and skull sessions to do it. And so it's just one of those things that I want my quarterback to be willing to give back to my other guys willingly, not because we have to make him come in.
Would the 49ers make that same choice? Would they choose Tom Brady for 1 year over Aaron Rodgers?
That's a little. They'll have the inside information with LaFleur and Shanahan. So one I wouldn't be as confident on. I would think with the movement stuff.
The familiarity, I get it with Josh McDaniels. Obviously makes sense.
Yeah.
I just thought the Devontae Adams allure.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, look, he's still Aaron Rodgers. I'm just in walk-off games.
Is he though?
No, I mean I'm just saying if you're comparing him to what you in the draft, what you're going to get next year. If you have a Raiders roster and you have those guys, they're kind of veteran.
Yeah.
They're a veteran
They
team.
can play
now.
together.
Yeah, you got to go get it.
Look, I don't think he's the same.
He's not the same guy.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he's you can throw him out there week one. He's going to be ready to play. Versus a developmental guy. All right, let's get to the draft here in the few minutes we have left.
We got a mock draft coming out? What's going on?
Come on, it's too early for that.
No, it isn't.
Chicago, Houston, Arizona, Indy, and then Seattle, who we mentioned. Seattle and Detroit here at 5 and 6. Quarterback teams would seem on this list. Obviously, 2 and 4 would be those teams with
2, 4, and 7, maybe.
7 is, and again, that's the thing with the Raiders is
they can't
with
take
all
a
those
young
veterans. Don't they kind of lean more towards a veteran quarterback with a ready-to-win team right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's going to be an interesting one. Carolina is
9.
Could be 9.
Is a 9 is a possibility there. But I think to me the big ones, Houston, Indy, I'd be surprised if those teams don't go. I mean, Indy's been trying to recycle the veteran. They can't do it again.
Got to pick one.
Enough.
Pick.
You got to draft one.
Yeah.
And then when you look there at Houston, this is kind of their year to get one if they want. They've got the capital right now to do it.
So the big question coming up, one, do we really feel like the floodgates will be open at number 1 for the Bears for a team that is desperate to get a quarterback? Do we believe there are enough teams that view this quarterback class as needing to
and
jump
you think
up
there's a vast difference
number
between
1?
number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks in the draft?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I'm looking at Houston, I'm like, well, are they really missing out on a quarterback? Because they're sitting at 2. They're guaranteed to have one of the top 2 guys.
Yeah,
is there a big difference between number 1 and number 2 when we dig into this and do the deep dive between whatever Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, whichever.
Yeah, I just wish I
could.
If I could just take Bryce Young and put him in C.J. Stroud's body, then I would I would run that card in.
Okay, so there you go. You're tipping your hand on the big conversation that we're going to have here, and that is size. Does it matter to one team? Does it matter to another with C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young? Because you put them in a room together, you put them right next to each other, you're like, wait a second. That's it. And there's no denying the production that Bryce Young has had at Alabama.
His tape's better. I mean, there's no denying that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think the interesting thing is, like, is there a team beyond the top 10 that wants to fly up for a quarterback? Right? Because it certainly feels like you've got 2 quarterback-needy teams in the top 4 and 2 not-so-quarterback-needy teams in the top 4. So can Indianapolis get comfortable with whoever's left after Houston decides?
The other thing you got to remember is Houston, I believe, is picking, 11 with their next one?
Right.
And you've got, we're going to talk about kind of the top. I think Will Levis will enter that conversation into those top 3 guys. But with Will Levis and then with Richardson from Florida.
Titans at 11.
You've got kind of that next tier of guys that are like toolsy, like crazy tools, size, arm strength, athleticism, not ready to play. Maybe that's a situation where they bank a pick here at number 2. You get yourself a premier defensive player, and then at 11 you might be saying, we'll get one we can work with and develop.
And then before the people beat us up, because we mentioned Anthony Richardson from Florida, about the tools, because the tools is probably better than the on-field talent and performance. 69 quarterbacks started games this year.
Yeah.
We have the great quarterbacks on a curve, because no matter what we say about the warts, those guys are playing in the National Football League.
No doubt. Well, we had so much fun today talking about all this stuff. We've got some more news and more changes coming as the week goes along. Appreciate you hanging with us. Remember, you can find all the Move the Sticks content on the NFL's YouTube channel, NFL.com, and the NFL app. We'll catch you next time right here.